This happened a week ago. I was looking for a break from my busy life. So I decided to go camping in Pinewood National Forest. I thought the quiet would help me recharge. I found a nice spot by a lake, surrounded by tall pines. It was peaceful, or so I thought. I felt excited about possibly documenting some interesting wildlife for my research. That night, I crawled into my tent as darkness fell. At first, it felt mostly quiet. I heard the gentle rustling of the leaves. Then I saw it, a shadow moving between the trees. I figured it was a deer, nothing unusual. But later, I heard whispers. They floated on the wind, just out of reach. I couldn't understand the words, but they felt like they were calling me. The next day, I went for a hike. I was deep in thought about my research when I got back to camp. My food supplies were rearranged. It bothered me, but I thought maybe I was careless. That's when I noticed the carvings on trees nearby. They looked old and strange. I felt uneasy. A shiver crawled up my spine, a sense of dread hanging in the air. That night the whispers returned. I heard laughter echoing through the trees. My heart raced, and I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. As I lit a fire to calm myself, the flames danced, casting eerie shadows. I thought I saw movement just beyond the light. My breathing quickened. I wished I could shake the feeling that something was off. Suddenly I caught a glimpse of a shadow. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. I wanted to believe it was just the flickering fire. But the whispers grew louder. They felt urgent, like they were forcefully pulling at me. Inside, a voice warned me to stay by my camp. I decided I had to leave. My heart was pounding in my chest. I scanned the woods, looking for other campers, but I'd seen nobody since I arrived. The symbols bothered me. The forest felt alive, and I felt so very alone. What was happening in Pinewood? I questioned everything. That night was the worst. I tried to sleep, but my heart wouldn't stop racing. I heard laughter again. Then I heard a voice. It was low and chilling. "Why are you here?" I froze. My pulse raced as I looked around. Nobody was there. I was terrified. The forest felt alive, but I felt like I was being watched. I wanted to run, but also needed answers. I stared into the dark woods, wondering what would happen next. I could hear the whispering again, taunting me from the shadows. Now, a week later, the memories haunt me. I still can't shake the feeling that something is out there. What were those symbols? What really happened in Pinewood National Forest? I wish I could forget, but I can't. It feels like a part of me is still there, trapped among the trees. I spent the next few days avoiding the forest. I returned home, but the memories lingered like a bad dream. I tried to distract myself with work, but the whispers wouldn't let me go. They echoed in my mind, pulling at my curiosity and fear. I needed to know what happened in Pinewood. I called a friend, someone who loved hiking and was brave enough to tackle challenging trails. "You should join me for a weekend trip," I said on the phone. He laughed and agreed, eager for an adventure. But deep down, I worried. What would I say about the strange things I had witnessed? Would he think I was losing my mind? On the day of our hike, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. As we drove to the forest, I shared my story with him. I expected him to laugh it off, but he listened carefully. "You know, a lot of people have had weird experiences in places like that," he said. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. We arrived at the campsite, and I could feel anxiety creeping in. Everything looked the same, but somehow darker. My friend set up the tent while I fumbled with the compass, trying to avoid looking in the direction of the lake. I needed to stay focused. That night, the laughter returned. It echoed through the trees just as I was starting to doze off. I was on edge, heart racing. I sat up, glancing at my friend. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded, his eyes wide. "Maybe it's just animals or other campers," he said. But I knew it was more than that. The whispers rose and fell, almost playful, like they were dancing in the dark. I gripped my flashlight, wishing it was brighter. When morning came, I suggested we explore further into the woods, away from the campsite. As we trekked deeper, I noticed more of those strange symbols carved into the trees. My friend laughed, pretending to be the forest guardian, mimicking the whispers. I shivered at the thought. Then everything changed. We stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center stood a larger tree, its trunk blackened and gnarled. The earth around it felt wrong, like it was decayed. I stepped closer, attracted by something I couldn't name. That's when I noticed it, a pile of small trinkets scattered around the base of the tree. They were shiny, almost like toys. "What are those?" my friend asked, stepping forward. "They look like offerings." "Maybe someone was here before us," I replied, my throat tightening. I picked one up, a small wooden figure. It was carved with the same symbols I had seen on the trees. Panic washed over me. This was not just a random pile. Suddenly I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow darted behind a bush. I turned, heart racing. "Did you see that?" I cried. My friend nodded slowly, his expression shifting from playful to serious. Before I could react, the air grew cold. A wave of dread surged through me. I glanced back at the tree, and something in me screamed that we needed to leave. I dropped the figure, and as it hit the ground, the laughter returned, louder, more sinister. We turned and ran, hearts pounding as we fled the clearing. The forest felt alive around us, branches reaching out like arms. I didn't know what we stirred, but I was terrified of what would happen next. What was going on? What had we awakened in Pinewood National Forest? We ran through the underbrush, panic driving us forward. The laughter echoed behind us, trailing like a shadow. I could barely hear my friend's footsteps behind me, but I could feel the heaviness in the air pressing down on us. "Where are we going?" he shouted, catching up to me. His breath was short, words tumbling out in haste. "Just away from the tree!" I gasped, not wanting to think too much about it. All I knew was that the clearing felt like a trap, as if the dark tree awaited us to return. We stumbled through the thickets, branches scratching at our arms and legs. The trail twisted, turning us around in circles. It was supposed to be a simple hike, but now the forest felt like it was closing in. Whispers flitted through the trees, teasing us, as if the woods had come alive. "Enough!" my friend shouted, finally halting. I turned to him, breathless. He looked me square in the eyes. "We need to stop and think, just for a second." I didn't want to stop. "We can't stay here," I said, wild-eyed. "Something is wrong." Before I could finish, I heard something else, a rustling in the nearby bushes. We both froze. The sound grew louder, closer. I felt dread pooling in my stomach. "What is that?" I whispered. My friend held his breath, stepping toward the sound. I grabbed his arm, my instincts screaming at me not to proceed. Just as we stood frozen in fear, a deer crashed through the brush, darting past us with wide eyes. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Just a deer," I mumbled. "Yeah, just a deer, right?" he said, shaking his head with a nervous laugh. But I could see the lingering doubt in his eyes. We took a few more steps, trying to regain our composure. "Let's go back to the trail and head to the lake," he suggested. "It will be safer there." I nodded, but as we turned, I swore I heard the laughter again, soft but sinister. My heart raced. "No, we should get back to camp," I replied. I didn't want to feel the weight of that tree again, the pulse of whatever was hidden behind the bark. We tried retracing our steps, but everything felt different. The path we had taken now seemed unrecognizable. Vague memories of our surroundings flashed through my mind like a film reel. The trees loomed larger, casting eerie shadows. Then, just as hope started to fade, we stumbled across a clearing. Incredible, alive with wild flowers. It was out of place in the otherwise grim forest. For a moment it almost felt welcoming, but something felt wrong about this too. That's when I saw it, a small figure amidst the blooms. It was the same wooden figure I had dropped by the black tree. I felt ice break through my veins. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My friend picked it up, examining it with fascination. "Look at this," he exclaimed, but his tone shifted when he met my eyes. "Wait, how did this get here?" I glanced around the clearing, the laughter exploding in my head like fireworks. It echoed louder, teasing us. "We need to leave, now," I insisted, my voice stronger this time. As we turned to hurry out of the clearing, a low growl rumbled from the direction we'd come. A creature stepped into view, shadows flickering over its unseen form. My heart nearly stopped. I didn't dare to breathe. What had we awakened? And how long would it take for it to catch up with us? The growl hung in the air like a thick mist. I felt the blood drain from my face. My friend and I exchanged a quick glance, understanding passing between us without words. We needed to get out. With the creature looming behind us, instinct kicked in. I bolted for the thickest trees nearby, pulling my friend along. We ran, branches scratching at our backs. The laughter was gone now, replaced by something darker, a menacing presence that seemed to taunt us with every step. We didn't look back. Fear surged through me, propelling my legs faster. Just as we reached the edge of the clearing, I heard the creature shift. It was close, the kind of close that made my throat tighten. "What is that thing?" my friend panted, struggling to keep up as I darted deeper into the woods. "I don't know," I snapped, swallowing hard. I could feel a pulse in my ears, drowning out the world around us. I spotted a narrow path to the left, a thin ribbon of trail that I hoped would lead us somewhere familiar. I veered onto it, and my friend followed. The laughter had returned, but now it seemed intertwined with an echoing growl, a sinister cocktail of sounds that made me want to scream. The path twisted, and I had no sense of direction. Each step felt like it could lead us closer to safety or deeper into danger. Had we just run in circles? We ducked beneath overhanging branches and pushed through thick brush, desperate for an escape. Then, through the trees, a flicker of light caught my eye, familiar and constant. The campfire. "Over there!" I shouted, my voice suddenly slicing through the tension. I felt a fire ignite within me, renewed hope filling my lungs. But the light was still far away. As we neared the flickering glow, my heart sank. There was no sound from the camp, no laughter, no chatter. It felt dead. We stumbled into the clearing and I froze, scanning the area. "Where is everyone?" my friend whispered, confusion etched on his face. The tent stood empty, the fire reduced to glowing embers. "Maybe they went to find us," I offered, but my voice wavered. Even as I said it, doubt gnawed at me. What if they hadn't? What if something worse had happened? Then, I noticed something on the ground. A broken branch lay where it didn't belong, its edges fresh. It looked like it had been recently disturbed. I knelt to examine it, my heart racing. Something had happened here. That's when I spotted a trail of small footprints leading away from the campsite, half filled with leaves and twigs. My breath caught in my throat. "Look at this," I said, nudging my friend. He squatted beside me, eyes widening. "Do you think it's—" "No. What if it is?" I pressed, the realization settling like cold water in my stomach. A noise behind us made both our heads snap up. The low growl was back, but this time it was joined by a new sound, a frail, childlike giggle. My heart dropped into my stomach. The shadows seemed to crawl toward us as the laughter echoed through the trees, gleeful and mocking. I could hardly think. We had to choose. Run back into the woods where uncertainty lurked, or confront whatever was coming for us from the camp. I could feel the presence closing in, as if something was watching, waiting for us to make a mistake. Before I could decide, the laughter grew louder, bright and unsettling. I felt my stomach twist. Whatever had awakened was here, and it was hungry for more than just fun. We were about to find out what we had really unleashed. The giggle pierced the air, chilling. We had no time to make sense of it. I turned, grabbing my friend's arm. "We have to move," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We sprinted for the tree line, feeling smaller and more vulnerable with each step. The growl rumbled again, closer this time. I could sense a weight behind us, a presence that pressed down on my shoulders. I glanced back, but the darkness swallowed everything. "We can't stay here," I shouted, urgency driving my voice. If we didn't escape the clearing, we'd be caught. I pushed through a thicket, branches scratching at my face, my friend right behind me. We finally stumbled into a thicker part of the woods. The trees closed in, their trunks like sentinels standing guard. The sounds of the camp faded, but the growl lingered, echoing in my thoughts. It felt like a challenge, a warning. "I think we lost it," my friend said, panting heavily, but his voice was laced with uncertainty. I wanted to believe him, but my instincts screamed otherwise. As adrenaline began to wane, I sunk down behind a large tree. We needed to catch our breath, assess the situation. "What do we do now?" he asked, face pale in the dim light. "Listen," I directed, letting the forest quiet envelop us. But the only sound was the wind rustling through the leaves, a soft lullaby that felt dangerously deceptive. Then there it was again, a faint giggle, a whistle of breath that was almost playful. My heart raced. "We're not alone," I murmured. I peered around the trunk, scanning the shadows. "Do you see anything?" I asked, my voice tinged with dread. "Nothing," he replied, trembling slightly. "What do we even—" A sharp snap broke the silence. I whipped my head around, heart in my throat. It came from our right, just behind the trees. I could feel my knuckles whiten around the rough bark. Something was out there. Before we could react, a small figure darted past us, just a blur dressed in tattered clothes, scraggly hair flowing behind them. My instinct was to scream, but nothing came out. It stopped a few paces away, shoulders heaving in laughter that twisted into a howl, both innocent and sinister. My friend noticed it too. What was that?" he croaked, eyes wide. "I don't know," I admitted. Panic swelled in my chest again. "We have to go, now." As we pushed ourselves back onto the trail, I felt bizarrely unsteady. The way the forest twisted around us felt like a maze, branches reaching like fingers trying to hold us back. Every rustle sent a wave of terror coursing through me. When we reached a small clearing where the towering trees broke into a slant of silver moonlight, I glanced back. The figure was gone, but the giggles echoed in my mind, the sound creeping into my thoughts like a chill. "What if it knows us?" my friend whispered, taking shaky breaths. "I don't know," I replied. "We need to find the others. They have to be close." Just as I turned to lead the way, the forest fell silent. The growl returned, deep and rumbling, but this time from all directions. The laughter exploded, multiplying like an echo, filling the woods with overwhelming sound. "Run!" I screamed, but as we turned and dashed forward, the giggles morphed into mocking cries, and the woods twisted. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The air was thick with silence, but my heart still raced. My friend lay beside me, eyes wide with fear. We were on the forest floor, damp soil and leaves beneath us. Where are we?" he stammered, frantic. "I don't know." My voice shook. I pushed aside the piercing confusion. The memory of laughter and growls clung to my mind. "We need to find the trail." We stumbled to our feet, disoriented. The moon struggled to pierce the canopy above, casting shifting shadows. My stomach churned. What had happened? I felt like I'd been pulled into a nightmare. Did we just black out? My friend asked, looking over his shoulder. I mean, I remember running, but then... nothing. I don't know. But we can't stay here. I motioned for him to follow, the unease gnawing at me. As we moved deeper into the woods, the atmosphere thickened like fog. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. At first I heard nothing. Then, faint but undeniable, a slow, rhythmic tapping echoed through the trees. I frowned, trying to pinpoint the direction. Maybe it was just falling branches or something else. But the sound grew louder in tandem with my heartbeat. "What is that?" My friend's eyes darted around. "Stay close," I said, swallowing hard. "Let's keep moving." We edged forward, the tapping continuing its haunted rhythm. Suddenly my foot caught on something and I stumbled. I looked down to see a pile of discarded items, old toys, broken bottles, dirty clothes. I felt a cold surge of dread wash over me. "This doesn't feel right," I said, frowning. My friend bent down to inspect the pile. "What do you think happened here?" Before I could answer, a figure darted between the trees ahead. My heart dropped. It was fast and small, a shadow slipping away before I could identify it. "Did you see that?" I gasped. "Yeah," he exclaimed, pointing. "What was that?" "Follow me," I urged, moving towards where it had vanished. But as we ran, my mind was flooded with a million questions. What were we dealing with? Then the tapping stopped. Silence consumed the woods once more. It was even more unnerving without the noises. I scanned the area, feeling naked under the all-seeing trees. "Maybe it's gone," he said, trying to catch his breath. "I doubt it." I scanned the trees, searching for any signs of movement. "We need to keep going. We have to..." In that moment, a low growl erupted from nearby, not just a sound, but a vibration that rattled my bones. My friend stiffened. "Run," I said, clenching my fists as adrenaline surged again. We dashed through the underbrush, ignoring cuts and scratches from the branches. Every noise echoed, the growl behind us, the twigs snapping underfoot. Then everything erupted into chaos. All around us the laughter returned, a cacophony that clawed at my sanity. "Where do we go?" my friend shouted over the noise, panic rising in his voice. "Any direction," I yelled back, urging him to keep moving. But before I could lead him, I caught sight of something just ahead, a clearing. "That way," I pointed, desperation fueling my legs. We dashed into the open space, skidding to a halt. The moonlight illuminated the ground, revealing something shocking. A circle of stones, etched with strange symbols, surrounded us, and in the center, a doll, a broken, weathered figure with missing eyes, half buried in the earth. My heart raced. What is that doing here? Then, as if sensing our presence, the laughter morphed into shrieks, piercing the air, and I realized we weren't done yet. The figures began to emerge from the shadows, and my breath caught in my throat. That's when I saw it, small, twisted creatures with wild hair, their eyes locked on us. "Run!" I screamed again, but this time I felt the very ground tremble beneath us. We turned to escape, but the laughter closed in, and everything went dark once more. I opened my eyes slowly, panic creeping in like ice through my veins. I lay on the damp ground, the cold air biting at my skin. Above me the night was impenetrably dark, save for a faint glow filtering through the leaves. My friend was gone. Where? My voice caught. I struggled to rise, my body aching, my mind spinning. Had we really just run? The laughter echoed still, dancing in the corners of my mind. Then I caught sight of something moving in the shadows near the stone circle. Adrenaline kicked in and I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. "Hey, where are you?" I called, but only the rustle of leaves answered. I darted towards the circle, scanning the area for my friend, but there was no sign of him. "Jason!" I shouted, panic rising. The memory of the twisted, giggling figures gnawed at the edges of my sanity. That was when the ground beneath me trembled again, shaking my resolve. I peered back at the stone circle. The doll was still there, but now it seemed to have shifted, as if it had turned its head. My breath hitched, and I stumbled back. What was going on? My thoughts raced. I had to find Jason. As I turned to call out again, a shrill giggle pierced the air, followed by a chorus of mischievous voices that filled the space around me. "Look what we have here," one voice chirped, teasing and sing-song. Another chimed in, "It's lost, just like the others." I fought the urge to scream. I had to move. I bolted through the trees, branches clawing at my arms. I didn't look back, but I could hear them. The sounds of their laughter grew louder, echoing through the darkness, wrapping around me like a cold net. Then I hit something solid, a tree, hard. The impact jarred me, knocking the breath from my lungs. I spun around, scanning the shadows for signs of movement. They were still out there, stalking, whispering. Suddenly a flash of light caught my eye. I ran towards it, desperation pushing me forward. My feet found a path, and I could see it, a flickering lantern set on a rock, illuminating a wider expanse just beyond the trees. "Jason!" I shouted, this time hoping to draw him out. I rushed forward, but the ground leaped beneath me again, swallowing my foot in a dark hole. I yanked my leg free, stumbling away, but the light flickered and died. "No, no, no," I breathed, panic surging anew. I felt a pull behind me, a weight as if something was reaching out to grab me. Shapes moved in the dark, rushing toward me. I turned and ran, this time without the light. I could hear the laughter above my heartbeat, melodic and chilling. It felt closer now, teasing me as I fled the space between the trees. Then, out of nowhere, a voice rasped close to my ear. "We see you." I stumbled forward, terror flooding my senses. The laughter began to crescendo, amplifying with every desperate step. With every ounce of strength I pushed through the underbrush. I couldn't stop. I had to find a way out before the laughter consumed me whole. The sound felt like a living thing wrapping around my throat. And then, amid the chaos and the laughter, I stumbled into a small clearing. I froze, because standing there was Jason, wide-eyed and pale. But he wasn't alone. What I saw next sent ice coursing through my veins. Jason stood in the clearing, trembling. But it wasn't just fear that contorted his face. Confusion and dread radiated from him. What chilled me most, however, was the circle of shadowy figures surrounding him. They moved with unsettling grace, each one flickering in and out of focus beneath the moonlight. "Jason!" I cried again, my voice breaking. I took a hesitant step forward, but the figures snapped their attention toward me, their laughter shifting into a twisted, predatory chorus. "Oh, look, another little lost one," one of them shrieked, and the others clapped in delight. "Get away from him." My voice had taken on a frantic edge, but still, I felt paralyzed. Jason seemed unable to move, his eyes locked onto something I could not see. The figures stepped closer to him, their forms shifting like smoke. I strained to hear what they were saying, but their whispers became a dissonant hum. Jason looked directly at me, his mouth moving but no sound escaping. His expression alone said it all. Fear mixed with a warning. I had to act. Without thinking, I lunged toward him. "Jason!" As I moved, the ground quaked again, but this time a dark, bubbling crack opened up beneath me. I fell, my hand scraping against the rough earth. Panic surged as I reached for Jason. The figures laughed, their voices echoing across the clearing like a sickening lullaby. "Stay away from him!" I yelled, digging my fingers into the dirt, desperately clawing my way towards Jason. Mud splashed on my face, but I didn't care. I was losing him. But then something caught my eye, an old, weathered wooden doll at the edge of the clearing, similar to the one I had seen at the stone circle. It lay abandoned, its glassy eyes glinting in the light. I felt an odd pull, a strange connection drawing me closer to it. "Come play with us," One figure sang softly, their voice a mix of sweet temptation and malice. "You can be one of us, forever." I shook my head, trying to clear my mind. No, I didn't want that. I wanted Jason, my friend, not some twisted game. Somehow, I managed to pull myself upright. I lunged for the doll, grabbing it firmly, and suddenly, everything changed. The ironic laughter faded and the figures shrank back, their shapes blurring into darkness. "Stop!" Jason shouted, breaking free from his trance. I could see something flicker in his eyes, recognition and fear battling for control. "I can help," he pleaded, his hands trembling. "Just don't let go of it." The weight of their bated breath surrounded us as I clutched the doll tighter, feeling its unsettling presence grow warm in my grasp. I was shielded by it somehow, but for how much longer? Before I could respond, the shadows lunged at Jason, their hands clawing, desperate to reclaim him. "Run!" he screamed, his voice erupting above the chaos. I turned, propelling myself towards the edge of the clearing and darting into the trees. The laughter wailed behind me, a cacophony of madness. I couldn't look back, not now. I didn't know what else might be lurking in the darkness aside from the laughter that threatened to drag me down, but I heard him again. "Don't leave me." My heart stopped. That command, pleading and terrified, was the last thing I heard before everything went black around me. What had I just unleashed? And where was Jason? I woke up gasping, the soft earth beneath me cold and damp. For a moment, the world was just shadows and whispers. I blinked, trying to shake off the remnants of whatever nightmare had consumed me. I was still in the woods, but the clearing was gone. Panic surged again, but I swallowed it down. "Jason?" I croaked, my voice hoarse. I scrambled to my feet, the doll still clutched tightly in my hand. The forest felt alive, breathing in something dark and heavy. I took a deep breath and scanned my surroundings. The trees loomed above me, their branches reaching like gnarled fingers. A thick fog rolled in, wrapping me in its icy grip. I didn't know which way to go. There was no sign of Jason, no indication of where his desperate cries had come from. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement to my left. Something darted between the trees, impossibly quick. My heartbeat quickened. I stepped toward the sound, inching forward with cautious curiosity. But then it hit me. What if it wasn't Jason? What if it was something worse? "Jason!" I called again, louder this time. My voice echoed off the trees, swallowed by the silence that followed. I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in around me, tugging at my resolve. I had to find him. I couldn't just leave him behind. Clenching the doll tighter, I pushed deeper into the woods. My mind raced, flashing back to the figures in the clearing, their laughter, their eyes. A sense of dread gnawed at me, a reminder that something here wasn't right. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath my feet and I almost stumbled. The trees around me seemed to shift too, their trunks twisting, almost as if they were alive, watching. I blinked hard, questioning the stability of my perception. Sweat trickled down my back, chilling against the cool air. Then I heard it again, a faint cry, muffled and distant. Help. It was definitely Jason. Relief washed over me, though it came with a rush of fear. I followed the sound, heart racing. The forest felt more claustrophobic, as though it were closing in. As I moved, the fog thickened. I could barely see a few feet ahead. I fought through it, pushing branches aside, the sharp tips snapping against my skin. I felt bruises forming, but I couldn't stop. Then, just ahead, I caught a flash of movement, and a deeper whisper cut through the air. "Join us." Everything inside me screamed to turn back, but I forced my feet to move forward. I couldn't let Jason become one of them. I had to reach him first. With a sudden burst of clarity, a small opening emerged in the trees ahead. I burst through and stumbled into another clearing, one bathed in an eerie glow. I squinted as my eyes adjusted and my breath caught in my throat. Jason stood at the center, eyes wide, but unseeing. He appeared drawn to a shadow that danced in front of him. The shadow twisted and coiled, embodying the laughter I had heard earlier. "Jason!" I shouted, feeling the weight of horror come crashing down. But then, from behind him, other figures materialized. They encircled him, their forms flickering in and out like dying embers. "No!" I gasped. I dropped the doll, a rush of instinct. If it was the source of this, I couldn't hold on to it any longer. As it hit the ground, the figures turned their attention toward me. Their laughter returned, chilling and relentless. Come play, they beckoned, voices melding into a dissonant hymn. I had opened a door I couldn't close. In that moment, an icy knowledge washed over me. This was just the beginning. I had to choose. Either fight to save Jason, or succumb to the darkness that was closing in. As their hands reached for me, I felt my body freeze, knowing I was about to find out what lay beyond the shadows. I jolted awake again, practically gasping for air. The quiet forest surrounded me, but unlike the unsettling stillness from before, this felt different. Something was off. I pushed myself up from the cold ground, my heart racing as confusion settled over me. Was I alone? I glanced around. "Jason," I called, my voice echoing eerily through the trees. There was no response, just faint rustling leaves and the bitter chill of the evening air. The weight of dread hung heavily around me, but I couldn't give in. I had to keep moving. With tentative steps, I ventured deeper into the woods. Each sound made my pulse quicken, the whispering of the leaves, the soft crunch of twigs underfoot. "Where are you?" I whispered to myself as I clutched the broken doll tightly, feeling its rough texture beneath my fingers. Perhaps it held the key to whatever dark entity was haunting these woods. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my attention, a small figure darting between the trees. My heart raced, but I had no choice. I had to follow it. "Jason!" I called out, determination pushing me forward. The figure slipped deeper into the thicket, but I refused to lose sight of it, the hope that it might lead me to my friend, forcing me onward. Then a sound cut through the heavy quiet, a fragile giggle, familiar yet chilling. My breath caught as memories rushed back. I remembered the dark figures, their laughter reverberating through the trees. "Jason!" I shouted again, the urgency clawing at my throat. Just ahead, I spotted a small clearing, illuminated not by moonlight but by a soft, unnatural glow. I burst through the brush, skidding to a halt. The laughter echoed again, bouncing off the trees, wild and sinister. And there in the clearing was Jason, standing rigid, his gaze unfocused, as if entranced by something just out of sight. "Jason! Snap out of it!" I shouted, the fear thickening my voice. He didn't respond, just continued to gaze ahead, eyes dull and lifeless. I stepped closer, sensing movement in the dark behind him, shadows stirring. "Get away from him!" I yelled, feeling the presence sway and pulsate with an eerie energy. The figures began to materialize, flickering into shape as they advanced toward us. "Join us!" they cooed, their voices sweet yet menacing, filling the air with a threatening allure. There were so many of them, twisted, pale things, their eyes glinting with hunger. I had to do something. I reached for the doll and raised it high. For a moment the figures halted, as if sensing the shift in energy. "This ends now," I cried, though doubt curled in my chest. With a flick of my wrist, I tossed the doll into the throng of shadows. It hit the ground and seemed to shatter like glass, releasing a sharp, flickering light that sparked across the clearing. For a split second, the figures shrieked, their laughter turning into cries of rage as they recoiled. "Come on, Jason, we have to go," I yelled, trying to reach him. The unforeseen wave of light flooded the clearing, pushing the shadows back momentarily. I reached for his hand. Finally, he blinked and looked at me, confusion dissolving into recognition. "Let's run," I cried, and we took off, tearing through the underbrush. The laughter trailed behind us, a haunting reminder of the chaos we were leaving. I didn't dare look back, solely focused on escape. But the woods twisted around us, branches, snares, pulling us deeper into the darkness. "Which way?" Jason shouted, breathless. "Stay close," I urged as panic rose once more. The path wavered beneath our feet, disorienting. I could feel the figures regrouping, the whispers of the voices losing their playful tone, turning unsettling. An orchestra of malice gathering to regain their prey. "Over here!" I yelled, spotting a flicker of light breaking through the shadows, a distant campfire. It began to propel us forward, but the air felt thick as more whispers curled around us. "Almost there," I reassured him, adrenaline spurring my resolve. The laughter became a cacophony, drowning out all other sounds. I sprinted toward the light that was growing larger, feeling the presence of the shadows closing in. At last, we broke free of the trees and stumbled into the campsite, empty but alive with energy. The fire had faded to glowing embers, but it was enough. I didn't hesitate, running toward it. And then, from the darkness, the laughter erupted again, a chorus of voices ringing in my ears. I could no longer tell what was real. I turned to see Jason standing just outside the reach of the firelight, that same distant look returning to his eyes. "Jason, no, come here!" I reached toward him, fear clenching at my heart. But he didn't move. Instead, the whispers escalated, swirling around us, tugging at his consciousness. "Join them, become one with us." "No," I cried out, the desperation clawing at my throat. I had to break whatever hold the shadows had on him. I threw caution to the wind and dashed forward, grabbing his arm and yanking him away from the dark edge of the woods. Just as I pulled him back into the warmth of the firelight, their cries crescendoed, a frantic, angry wail. Yet even in the warmth, I felt doubt pooling in my stomach. The darkness hadn't retreated. It lingered on the edges of my vision, teasing at the fraying edges of reality. "Did we get away?" Jason asked, eyes darting back toward the trees. "I think we did," I began, but doubt cut through my resolve. I could still hear the whispers of the forest, like threads woven into the fabric of my mind. As we hugged the fire, questions churned within me. What were those figures? What had we awakened? Would they return? And in the heart of that uncertainty, I realized the forest wasn't just a place. It was something alive, an entity that thrived on fear, lurking between the shadows of our minds, feeding on our dread. I would never truly know what happened that night in Pinewood National Forest. I could only hope we escaped their grasp, but I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps we would return to them one day, whether we wanted to or not. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if we awoke something else with us. I still hear the laughter lingering in the back of my mind, and though I try to drown it out, it remains a haunting echo, a reminder that some shadows never truly fade.